What is up, guys, and welcome back to Dawn of Man episode number 15. Guys, today marks the final episode of season 1 of Dawn of Man, and I'm sure we'll be back in the future. Hopefully we'll be able to do some interview seasons with some of the leading thought leaders in the space on futuristic technologies and any industry you could imagine. Now, to bring this season full circle, I want to bring it all the way back. We started the season when we talked about, why Dawn of Man, what kind of things I believe in, and, where I see the future going. And then every single episode from there on, went really deep on a specific issue. You see, Dawn of Man, talks about a lot of things that happen in the next 30 or 40 years. And that is something I talk about in my book, Dawn of Man, with the same name, that takes place in 2050. However, the first book I already wrote was called Dark Age, and Dark Age was inspired by a theory called the digital dark age. And that's what we'll be talking about and discussing today. As the digital dark age is a theory that is truly, impending upon us, that is bound to become reality and truly can be scary reality. If you've read my book, Dark Age, as essentially what it means is that, the world kind of, I discussed in my book, goes between golden and dark ages, right? Before Rome, we were going through a dark age period already where we don't have much history of what happened. Then the time of both Greece and Rome came, the high times, and as Rome fell, we fell into another dark age where we don't know much, the medieval times as we know them. And then after the medieval times, we came to the Renaissance, another golden age. And afterwards, in that time was the colonial era, and a lot more things have happened. But even then, there's cities like Roanoke where we have no proof or no evidence of any person ever living there. From one day to the next, people died. And now we're living in this age where it's really uncertain. Are we in a golden age or are we in a dark age? And in fact, the digital dark age proposes that we're really on the verge of another dark age. And the reason being is that you might be thinking, everything is safe. All the information that we have, it's out there, it's safe on the cloud, we've got it copied everywhere and whatnot. But what researchers found is that already now we've lost so much data because of the fast outpacing of our standards of technology. In fact, I think it was back in 1975, when NASA did one of its, landings, I think on Mars, where they had video evidence and whatnot, but they failed to translate it onto newer technologies, onto newer formats. So 10 years later, they tried to use that footage, and they realized it was on some older format that nobody knew. And the people that were around 10 years ago either left NASA or already died. So the fact is, we're going so fast through different mediums. Even from the time I grew up, for the computer, we use stuff like discs. These quadratic discs that we had. And for music, same thing. You had these little cassette tapes, that we used for music. And then after cassettes, came CDs, and then, with movies, we had DVDs, Blu-rays, HD DVD, and you know what? Nowadays, who even uses CDs? In fact, MacBooks don't even come with CD players anymore. Even my regular Windows computer doesn't come with CDs anymore. So even CDs are really outdated now. What any kid growing up now will be like, what is that? How can I use that? So with the digital dark age, we propose that we're getting in two things really apply. First of all, the outdating of formats, meaning that a lot of the information, all of the knowledge and wisdom and data that we have will no longer be usable or readable a few years from now. And then the second aspect of it, which is really the crazier part and the scarier part, is how we're becoming so reliant on the internet. And this plays in with the first part as well, because look, if tomorrow we no longer had the internet, then anything we store on the internet, anything in the cloud, it's gone. So thinking about this would be this way. 3 decades ago, if the internet disappeared, nobody would know, because the internet really became a thing, not like the World Wide Web didn't become a thing until 1995. And then if, let's say 2 decades ago, the internet disappeared, that was like 1998, people would say, told you so, this internet thing, it's like Bitcoin. Back then it was like, this internet thing sounds scary, it's weird, it's not gonna last. Just as like the founder of IBM, I believe, said that no more than 3 people would ever use a computer, right? Funny. Now everybody uses a computer. The bottom line is with the internet, people weren't certain. Now, let's take it 1 decade. So we went from nobody noticed to people said, I told you so to 1 decade ago. I think business would have hurt a little bit. We're now 2008. But truthfully, not much business was happening online. People were using email, certainly. People were using email a lot. Maybe some people had websites, but Amazon was around, but Amazon was of course around, but I don't know how much business it was doing. But the bottom line is the world wouldn't have had a hard time shifting back to doing business the way it used to. And even social media, I know I joined Facebook back in 2008, so it was just in the early stages. So nobody would be protesting on the streets. But let's say the internet went away today. How crazy would the world go if the internet went away today? You see, first of all, on the more superficial things like social media, all of a sudden we're basically disconnected from the world. If I unfollow somebody, it's almost as if they don't exist, because all of a sudden I don't see their stuff happening anymore. I don't see what they're up to date today, and they basically fade from my mind. So imagine if you take away social media all of a sudden, people will be protesting on the streets. But forget about social media for a second, because that is, at the end of the day, it's still superficial if you want to call it that way. Communication goes away. So social media is part of communication, but at the same time, most of our text messaging and whatnot also goes over the internet. A lot of our telecommunication goes over the internet. And if you take away communication, you also, commerce will more or less start falling. It might take a week or less until you go to your local, Walmart and see that the shelves are no longer stocked. Because a lot of infrastructure, a lot of inventory, all that is tied to the internet. If we no longer have the internet, then all of a sudden your stores will no longer be shipped to, then your banking starts falling apart, and essentially anything that we're used to in this life ceases to function. As of 2008, I promise you anything you set your hand on has a relation to the internet. If you take away the internet, those structures will start falling apart. So we've gotten to this scary level of dependence. We've gotten to the scary level of dependence where even if you take away the structures, you also take away the knowledge. It's the mix of the two that's so poisonous. Because you might say, look, if I can't shop, for groceries anymore, then I'll grow my own. But let me guess, most people don't know how to grow their own food. They would consult Wikipedia first. Well, guess what? Wikipedia's gone too. So what are you going to do? I think most of us, because we live in this age where we think we no longer need information because we can access it at the, at a press of a button, we don't know things anymore. We don't know how to go about our day-to-day lives without the knowledge that's available online and without the services that are provided through the usage of the internet, which is essentially anything you ever purchase. Because, even if you go to, a restaurant, they don't grow it in their backyard. They get it from some other country, which they're able to source because of, communication. So if all this stuff falls apart, that is truly when we will be landing in the digital dark age, in my opinion. This is kind of like the world the dark age discusses. A world that takes place in the future, but that's truly reminiscent of the past. Because if you take away the internet, if you take away, let's say, the energy grid, for example, you truly are able to move back into a medieval age. An age where people have to figure shit out on their own. Where people, they can't just pull up their phone and find the answer. They can't just go to the store and buy the stuff they do. They basically have to go back to being self-sufficient. They have to go back to creating their own little communities and function as a local community. So the crazy thing with the digital dark age that we have to understand for us is that with every step that we take towards these amazing innovations that we've been talking about over the past 15 episodes, whether it's, augmented reality, a redone criminal justice system, fast transport, you name it, automation especially. If we stop doing our jobs when we don't even know how to do simple tasks, in fact, we'll be so reliant on machines doing our jobs for us that if they ever stop doing them for us, we won't know what to do next. So we need to have a certain level of self-understanding, a certain level of being self-sufficient. Even if for every step that we take towards embracing automation, every step that we take towards, letting this technology into our lives, every now and then we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, if all this was to be gone tomorrow, would I still be able to live the way I live? Or are there certain skills that I need to pick up? Are there certain skills that I need in order to maintain life? Because the truth of the matter is, someday, in the next 50 years, in the next 100 years at least, I think we're bound to face a dark age. And that's not just crazy Felix saying it, that's even somebody like Elon Musk saying it. And funny enough, he said that after I published my book Dark Age, which was amazing for me to read, that somebody like Elon agrees that there's a high chance that we might fall into a future that might be more reminiscent of a dark age than the kind of golden age that we think we're striving towards. But you might be saying, how is it even possible, that we lose the internet, right? How is it possible that it's gone tomorrow? Well, what you have to understand is that there's really 3 easy ways, so to say, of how we might lose the internet any day possible that puts us back into such a dark age. The first one is that almost any internet in the world, especially in the United States, comes from very few companies. There's truly an oligopoly when it comes to providing internet. Companies such as Comcast, AT&T, you name them, that truly own and control almost all the broadband around the world and especially in the United States. Where if they decide to do something, and we've had this conversation when it came to net neutrality, they can truly, shut it off on us. And if you don't say, well, they don't have any bad intention, they've got stock values to care about, well, then all somebody has to do is target those companies, those 2 or 3 companies, take them down, shut them down, take them over, you name it, and all of a sudden, they got control over the entire connectedness of the US. A second example might be cyber war, right? So for example, this has already happened a couple times where hackers were actually able to take down certain sites, where hackers were able to take down entire, companies, such as for example, an internet provider company, or was able to block or black out certain sites. So as cyber war becomes more and more thing, countries will be certainly incentivized to shut down a country's energy grid, or alternatively a country's information system, such as the internet, because they know that if they can shut down the internet, that country is screwed, because so much is reliant on the internet, where that is probably one of the most drastic economic attacks you could do. Forget about stealing money from a country's banks, forget about devaluing a country's currency. If you're able to shut down the internet for a day, you would cause billions of dollars in damages. Literally, I would say it's probably billions of dollars even a minute. With all the transactions that occur, because everything is tied to the internet. And third and lastly, at some point, if things go wrong, we talked a lot about AI in the series so far, and a lot of times we talked about all the great things that AI can bring to us. But what if AI becomes self-developing, self-learning, self-reliant? Maybe at some point we will have to make the tough decision of saying, look, AI is able to learn from itself and all of that through the internet. That's essentially, the internet will become its neural network. So the only way to shut down the AI, which at that point would be, so to say, the destroyer of worlds, which, and funny enough, again, I hate to bring up Elon all the time because I'm a big fan, but even Elon talked about how AI might turn into this sort of immortal dictator that we create ourselves. So if the only way to shut that AI down would be to take down the internet, we would voluntarily put us into the dark age. While a dark age is not a certainty, it most definitely is a high probability. And even if it's not a high probability, at the very least, it's probable. There's a good chance that we might live through such a time. So it's important for us to do many things. First of all, every now and then we probably should take a tech fast. We should be able to live life without all the stuff that we start associating with. It's already important now, but it's only going to become so much more important when we start living in virtual realities, when we start seeing everything through the lens of AR. We need to every now and then take a step away and basically reconnect with base reality. What is base reality? What does base reality feel like? Who are we? And then at the same time, be able to be self-sufficient. Learn whatever skills we need to, to survive, feed ourselves, defend ourselves. If we, if we're so used to like, being living in a peaceful world, being able to defend ourselves, it's just as important. The bottom line is this. Look, we over the past 15 episodes, we discovered and discussed, so many different routes our world can go through so many different industries. And there truly is so many exciting things ahead of us that can change the world, that can make us better, that can help us become more of us, that can expand the human limitations and really redefine what it means to be human. But throughout that whole journey, challenges will be thrown our way. And it is our job to think ahead. It is our job to do the things necessary, even if they're unpopular, in order to ensure that we as a species have a thriving future ahead. Guys, this sums up the final episode of Dawn of Man Season 1. I hope you enjoyed both this episode and the series. I would definitely appreciate any comments down below. What episode perhaps you enjoyed the most? What you would love to learn about more in the future? And especially if there's any thought leaders that you think of. Any people in the space that really have a mind for the future, that have the kind of perspective that goes beyond the kind of bullshit that we fill our minds with in the present day and age, that will allow us to to have exciting conversations about where's the world really heading, what do we need to be aware of, and what do we need to be facing in order to build that thriving future. So leave a comment below with who you would love me to interview, who you would think would be great as an asset to the show, and any topics you would love us to discuss in the future. Either way, I really appreciate any of you guys that have watched it. There's 15 episodes, there's a lot of content to watch, these go really in depth, but it's something I truly enjoyed. There's so much content out there about all types of subjects, but there's very little content about this kind of stuff. The stuff that matters and the stuff that will be front page center on every newspaper, maybe 20 years from now. But right now it's too soon for anybody to care. And I think anybody, who cares about the future will know that it's important to care about it now before it becomes too late. Because the only way to make a change, the only way to make a difference is to be proactive rather than reactive. So all of you, have already earned, a place in my book, a place in, in my heart for, taking this serious, watching this, and being engaged. So thanks so much for all of your support, and spread the message, share these videos with your friends, because if we see that it's getting a lot of traction, we'll be much faster resuming with season 2. But either way, I appreciate all your support, and I'll see you in season 2. Thank you so much.